Today I'm going to give you a quick tour of embryonal tumors. Embryonal tumor, from 2016 to 2022, nothing much has changed, not much has changed. And what I'm going to do is, what I am going to do is with whatever investigative tool that we have, how we use and apply and report as per the new WHO classification. So the most common embryonal tumor in CNS is the medulloblastoma. This is an embryonal neuroepithelial tumor arising in the cerebellum that we know, or in the dorsal brain stem, presenting mainly in childhood. And the WHO has now started classifying these tumor in two ways, genetically defined and histologically defined. So, but most of us, we practice it. This is 2016. Where it shows that the medulloblastoma genetically defined is classified into Wnt activated, SHH activated, and SHH activated and P53 wild type. This is the classification that is used, and histologically defined we have been using for last many years. Other than that, new types of embryonal tumor which have been added are the embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosettes, that is C19MC altered, embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosettes, NOS when we don't use the molecular testing, and then we call it NOS, and medulloepithelioma, the CNS neuroblastoma, ganglioneuroblastoma, CNS embryonal tumor, NOS, atypical teratoid rhabdoid tumor, and CNS embryonal tumor with rhabdoid features. This is the classification, and is almost same in the 2021 WHO. This is the old picture that we have been using. This gives you the genetically defined groups, which not only have the demographic characteristics, their clinical features, their genetic marker, and their clinical outcome, all is very well defined in these genetic groups. This is our genetic profile, the histological types which are associated with these genetics. So these are the genetic groups, and this is from WHO. This is from WHO. You all can go through these. So let me just go through some of these, the histologically defined WHO medulloblastoma, and which we have been reporting for many years now. So they are medulloblastoma classic, medulloblastoma nodular or desmoplastic, medulloblastoma with extensive nodularity, and medulloblastoma with large cell or anaplastic medulloblastoma. These are the four category or the group genetically defined groups of medulloblastoma. So the first one is the classic medulloblastoma. This accounts for almost 72% of the medulloblastomas. It occurs in infancy to adulthood, but predominantly a childhood tumor. So this is how the medulloblastoma looks like. These are you see sheets and syncytial arrangement of undifferentiated round cells. Sometimes you see rosettes, many rosettes. Sometimes you see these rows of tumor cells, And sometimes these parallel rows, when you see, this is called a spongioblastic pattern. And on IHC, they express very non-specific neuronal markers such as synaptophysin, NSC, MAP2, NCAM1. These are all non-specific neuroepithelial markers which are expressed by the round cells. Sometimes these can show patchy expression of these markers, or sometimes they may be negative also. Some cells expressing GFAP and embryonal morphology can also be seen, and INI1 and BRG1 are expressed. They show nuclear positivity in medulloblastoma. So you have a round cell tumor which can show which shows synaptophysin positivity and which shows INI1 nuclear expression. This is the classic pattern of medulloblastoma. Sometimes it shows neuronal maturation in the form of cells expressing NUN or MAP2 or neurofilament and synaptophysin more in the maturing cells than in the undifferentiated cells. Sometimes the medulloblastoma can show weak expression of synaptophysin only, and sometimes, as shown here, it can show a strong expression. So even when it is showing this kind of, you need to go on high power to see the positivity of neuronal markers. So GFAP can be seen in these small round cells, like seen here, here. These are not entrapped native cells or the existing normal astrocyte, but the focal positive expression of GFAP can be seen in a medulloblastoma, but it can be seen in the tumor cells. Ki67 in a medulloblastoma is high, but never very high. It always ranges something like 30-40%. When a medulloblastoma shows an expression of 80% above, you must suspect ATRT, and people who don't use INI don't do INI1 on every medulloblastoma should put at least in those tumors which show an extremely high Ki67 labeling index. Chromo can be patchy positive in a medulloblastoma. So this was a classic medulloblastoma, or a medulloblastoma having classic morphology. Then coming to desmoplastic or nodular medulloblastoma. This accounts for about 20% of all medullos. It occurs in children less than 3 years of age. It accounts for almost 50% of the tumors, whereas in adults it accounts for about 20% of all the medulloblastomas. So this is how the nodules of nodular medulloblastoma looks like. The nodules are pale and the intervening cells are more blue. Here again, these are paler areas and surrounded by more. Here the intervening part is more intense. So these are the nodules and this is the intervening blue cells. When you, here again you see, these nodules are composed of little more mature cells than the intervening bluer areas. These are the nodules and these are the intervening areas. So GFAP is practically negative, and the synaptophysin is more positive in the pale areas, is more strongly positive in the paler areas. Whereas the Ki67 is more in the intervening blue areas. The nodules are not so much labeled by Ki67. This is the reticulin, which is positive in the around the nodules. Okay. So synaptophysin is more in the nodules and Ki is more in the intervening bluer areas. So this is nodular type of medulloblastoma. Then the medulloblastoma with extensive nodularity. 80% of this type is located in the vermix. It accounts for less than 5% of the medulloblastoma. So this is how it looks. It also gives a false impression of a nodular type, but when you see these areas, here, this is from web pathology, the elongated reticulin-free zone, streaming of neurocyte cells in a fibrillary background is seen. You see them in streams here. It is like it is forming a stream. Again, the streaming part is more mature and they are positive for neuronal markers. And again, Ki is more in the intervening blue areas. I have only seen one case in last 4 years or so, and it is quite rare. Coming to large anaplastic, the malignant embryonal tumor, poorly differentiated, frequently containing rhabdoid cells. This picture belongs to the large cell anaplastic, large cell or anaplastic medulloblastoma. So this one is again consists of round cells, and they are very cellular and many times show large anaplastic cells with brisk mitosis. You see so many mitosis, and very bizarre cells can be seen. These are CD56 or synaptophysin positive, focal GFAP positivity can be seen, synaptophysin positive. Ki in many areas is high. Okay, this is when you see areas like this, you call it large cell or anaplastic medulloblastoma. This accounts for again 5% or so of all the medulloblastomas. Okay, these were the 4 types of histologically defined medulloblastoma. Now using IHC, we can do the genetically defined groups also using beta-catenin, YAP and GAP1. 3 antibodies we use, and we use P53, MYC and MYC. And we can classify using these 5 antibodies. We can classify these medulloblastomas as per the genetic typing. We have started using it, but the clinician in our setup are not very keen, so we don't. I don't have a big experience on using these antibodies, and initially we were having technical issues because these antibodies were not working. So now we have acquired the new Ventana, so maybe if they work good, I will in some future class show you the experience with the with classifying medulloblastoma genetically using IHC markers. So coming to the to ATRT, so this one is more cellular and shows, as seen, it's not necessarily that you will see such morphology. ATRT can show you all different kind of morphology, but this particular case showed large cells with prominent nucleoli, and in areas it showed very primitive morphology of round cells. In other areas it showed large cells with brisk mitosis. And this one was patchy CK positive, SMA was negative, synapto positive, key was really high, as I was telling you, a medulloblastoma which shows near 100%, 80-90% key index, then must do INI. So this is the INI1 of the case, where the endothelial cells are positive and the tumor cells have lost the INI1 expression, proving it to be a atypical teratoid rhabdoid tumor. Sometimes 90% of the cases lose INI1, but about 10% lose BRG1. So it is best we do both these one, INI1 and BRG1. SMARC A4 and SMARC B4, I think. So coming to another case, this case was a 20-year-old man who presented with a tumor in near in the brainstem and involving the cerebellum as well as the part of the extending into the brainstem. So this one was again a primitive round cell tumor with extensive necrosis. Only the tumor was surviving, tumor cells were surviving around the blood vessels, and in areas, these cells, there were areas which the cells look like the rhabdoid cells. You can see abundant pink granular cytoplasm with eccentric nuclei, prominent eosinophilic nucleoli, extensive necrosis. In areas the cells were spindled. Again, such macronucleoli were seen. So it had a very rhabdoid morphology and very brisk mitosis and atypical mitosis, giving a very perivascular rosette-like formation, like you see in ependymoma. But this tumor showed quite significant GFAP positivity, CK positive, INI was retained, BRG1 was also retained. It showed patchy SMA positivity. P53 was overexpressed. Focal synaptophysin positivity was seen. Ki67 was very high. Focal NFP positivity was seen. Since both BRG1 and INI1 were retained, we called it CNS embryonal tumor with rhabdoid features. Coming to Another case, this is again a tumor with embryonal morphology. This was a 7-year-old boy presented with tumor in it was in one of the hemispheres, not in the cerebellum. So this again, you can see at this morphology that this was a very blue tumor, very blue cellular tumor area showing spindling, round cells. This was showing GFAP positivity. Synaptophysin was also positive. Whole tumor showed vimentin positivity, focal CK positivity, and EMA positive. But the EMA was not dot positive. Key was high. So this was a tumor which was having small cell morphology, embryonal morphology. So which are the tumor we think about? We think about embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosettes, ATRT, pediatric GBM, and supratentorial ependymoma or adult type of GBM. Because this tumor was showing GFAP positivity, synaptophysin positive, CK patch positive, and high key. So these were the differentials which were considered when we looked at this case. So the embryonal tumor with multi-layered rosette, that is ETMR, they occur in children below the age of 4 years, and nearly all die within 1 to 2 years of diagnosis, and they encompass 3 histological patterns. The ETMR with peanut-like areas with true rosettes, ETMR with neuropil, then ependymyoblastoma, where you have these rosettes with fibrillary material in the center, and medulloepithelioma, where you see true canals, majority of the tumor forming these true canals. These are the 3 patterns. On IHC, the peanut areas show intense nestin and vimentin positivity, and rosettes show variable positivity. Small cells and rosettes show variable expression of CK, EMA, and CD99. They are negative for GFAP and neuronal markers. INI1 is retained and key varies from 20 to 80%. So, and the molecular marker is C19MC altered. This is the marker on the molecular, and its surrogate IHC is Lin28A. So our tumor was Lin28A negative and INI1 was retained. As you remember, this case can show CK positivity, EMI expression, but they are negative for GFAP and other neuronal markers. Our case did show some CK positivity and some EMA positivity, and but this Lin28A was negative and INI1 is retained. So coming to the second differential, which is atypical teratoid rhabdoid tumor. This is a highly malignant tumor which is typically occurs before 5 years of age, male more than female, accounts for 1 to 2% of pediatric tumors, supratentorial and infratentorial, both locations, you can see ATRT, and cerebral hemispheres, CP angle, brainstem are more commonly seen in the first 2 years of life. This is an heterogeneous tumor, difficult to recognize solely based on morphology. The striking feature is that they show rhabdoid cells, tumors containing variable mixture of PNET, mesenchymal, and epithelial features. We must suspect atypical teratoid rhabdoid tumor. Small embryonal component is most commonly encountered in 2/3 of the tumors. So sometime when you have a small biopsy, you may just see the small embryonal component. It is a polyphenotypic tumor. That is, it expresses CK, EMA, SMA, Vimentin, GFAP, NFP, synaptophysin, as this tumor was expressing. But I showed you that it showed INI1 was retained. So we did BRG1 and this IN1 is retained, and the BRG1 we could not do at that time. We did not have BRG1. So this is an old case I'm showing you. So ATRT still remain a differential in this case because we were unable to do BRG1. So then another differential was pediatric GBM. Pediatric high-grade glioma encompass. Now, after the last class, you must remember that high-grade pediatric gliomas, they encompass a lot of molecularly defined tumors, and now we have to investigate them differently. But this is an old case, and many of us may still have to use this only. So I'll just go through this. When we see a high-grade glioma in pediatric age group, we must do H3K27 mutation, and in this case, we did do H3K27, which was retained, but we at that time we did not have G34R-V, so we were not unable to do that. But there was H3K27 mutation was not found in this case, and IDH1 mutation was also not found. IDH1 and 2 because sometime in pediatric age group also we can find adult type of high-grade glioma. Even that was also not seen in this case. Then ependymoma, high-grade ependymoma was suspected, especially the RELA fusion type, and for which L1 cam was done, which was negative. So we did not find the RELA fusion type of evidence for RELA fusion type of high-grade ependymoma. The H3K27M mutation was also not found, and IDH1 mutation was also not found in this case. P53 was mutant, ATRX was retained. So we were left with these two options, or three options, I must say. The BRG1 we were not able to do, so it could still be an ATRT which shows BRG1 mutation, or it could be a high-grade glioma with G34 mutation. And if both BRG1 was retained and if G34 mutation was also not there, then we could call it an CNS embryonal tumor, NOS. So in this case, when I just search for this case to show you, because when you see an embryonal tumor, you should not only, if it is a classical medulloblastoma in cerebellum, maybe then you can avoid doing all the stains. But If it is showing high mitosis, if it is showing variable morphology, then you must do IHC to pick up any polyphenotypic expression, and then you must investigate further. So this was our last class.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I have a doubt. Once our neurosurgeon has sent to us one frozen, and they wanted to differentiate medulla versus ependymoma in frozen. I was not knowing much that time.
Very difficult sometimes, especially if it is a well differentiated ependymoma. We don't use this well division, the one with the canals and perivascular rosetting, everything. Then maybe one can differentiate, but medulloblastoma and ependymoma can very easily be differentiated on radiology.
Okay.
Radiologist Bala should say, because ependymoma the circumscribed tumor, whereas embryo, the radiological characteristic of a cellular round cell tumor are very different. So when they have gone for operation, before that they should sort this out, no? Nowadays the radiology of radiology is very, very good, especially for CNS. Our radiologists even tell us that this is IDH mutant, it is going to be IDH mutant glioma. This is a wild type, So many things they tell you now. So the radiological characteristic of ependymoma and of medulloblastoma are very different. They should sort this out before operating, instead of bothering us in frozen. If no more question, can we say good night? And hope you all enjoyed these talks. Okay then, if you have no questions, bye.